That's the best you can do? It's here, Illinois, come on here. Golly, gotta have some Virginians here.
We started this party, we're gonna finish this party. This is our last session. Thank you all for sticking with us. Don't worry, there's cocktail hour after. We have talked a lot about some issues that I think we can kind of close out here. Backstage, we were talking about an issue that's come up a lot about workforce development, and you said to me, these folks got to get in the game. So tell me, what's the game?
Well, listen, when I became governor, Virginia had been hurt hard. We are the #1 state in America for defense spending. Sequestration really whacked Virginia. Before I became governor, the month before, they'd only create 1,300 new jobs in the month of December. Our unemployment rate had risen to 5.4%. So I said, I'm going to go out and build that new Virginia economy. So I went to 5 continents, 35 trade missions, the most of any governor in America. I brought back about $20 billion in new capital, 200,000 new jobs we created. And what happened with Virginia, our unemployment went from 5.4 down to 3.4. I had so many jobs, I didn't have a skilled workforce. And I'd done all the work to bring all this business back, so I would meet with all my college presidents, universities. I also put the largest investment ever in education in Virginia, $1 billion. I put up $50 million in my last budget for financial aid at higher ed. We now give financial aid for non-credit courses. I mean, we really transformed our education system. But I would tell my presidents, I need you to give me a skilled workforce. You got to understand the market, the 21st century economy. We became the #1 state in America for cybersecurity. I had, when I left office, 38,000 opening jobs in cybersecurity. The starting pay was $88,000. I told my presidents, I want to see cybersecurity courses. I want to see computational reasoning, critical thought process. We now are the first state in America. We teach cyber in kindergarten. Right. And it goes all the way up, higher ed, all the way down.
Interesting. And so how fast can the universities, how fast did the universities respond?
Well, when you give someone $1 billion, they're going to respond pretty quickly. But I was it's a partnership. I love education. I'm great at job creation. I can't do that unless I have a great workforce, and workforce all goes to education.
Right.
So I was willing to invest the money, and they had in turn, I mean, there's certain courses they probably didn't need to offer. We could all talk about tenure, the costs involved with those types of things. But I mean, these are conversations that I have open and frank conversations with President of Virginia Tech, President of UVA, about what we needed to do. But they really moved very quickly. And community colleges have become, to me, they are such a sweet spot. You know, we're the first state in America. If you go get a community college degree I have 166 credentials that we developed. If you'll go get one of those credentials in one of these fields, we, the state, pay 2/3 of the cost. I don't believe it should be totally free. I do believe someone ought to have something on the table. Nothing's free in life. I want you to show you have a passion, you have a commitment. But my last year in office, about 51,373 STEM-H credentials in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the most in the United States of America. And that's because our universities and community colleges responded. You can move very quick.
Right. Another issue that has come up a lot is the question of free speech. It's been, people have been really obviously roiled by that debate here today, but obviously the country has too. You were governor during Charlottesville. Tell us how you see, we've talked a lot about the climate on campuses.
Yeah.
How does that reflect, how do you see the political debate that got us to this moment in Charlottesville?
You know, people always ask my best day as governor, worst day as governor. And, you know, folks, honestly, when you go home to bed tonight, think about this. You know, think about Virginia, the first state, 1607, when those 3 ships came from England. They didn't go to Massachusetts, that little rock, whatever that was 12 years later in Pennsylvania. They came to Virginia. Our first governor was Patrick Henry. Started the American Revolution, give me liberty, give me death. Our second governor, Thomas Jefferson. And now, Terry McAuliffe. I mean, you gotta admit, what a great country. And I was born in New York, who knew? But whatever. They always ask me, what's the best day, worst day? My best day, as you know, was April 22nd, 2016. And I do thank the New York Times editorial page who helped me. You know, I went out and restored more rights than any governor in American history. 206,000 felons, I gave their rights back to vote. Got sued by the Speaker, the Majority Leader, went to the Supreme Court at the state, lost the first round. They sued me for contempt of court. On my next action, I won that round. But that was a great day for Virginia and for the country. Worst day was Charlottesville. And Kate, I had known for months, the FBI, DHS, they had all briefed us. There was no surprise. We knew they were coming. They were told to come with arms and to hurt people. We had all the data. I committed about 1,000 state police, and I called the National Guard out for the first time in decades to deal with the situation. I'm all about free speech. You know, they went on to the University campus, Virginia campus the night before. They should not have been there, but they went on. I'm proud of those UVA students. They encircled the statue of Thomas Jefferson. They were trying to deface the statue of Thomas Jefferson. They didn't let them do that. They went down and bought hundreds of tiki torches and were marching. I mean, but the next day when I was there, I got to tell you, I've never in my life experienced anything like it. To have these people walking down, they came from 35 states. They weren't from Virginia. They came walking down streets, literally screaming the most vile, disgusting things I'd ever heard about members of the African American race and members of the Jewish faith that I wouldn't even repeat in this audience today. And I wondered, how did we get to a place in this country where people feel comfortable, hundreds and hundreds of them screaming? You know, they used to wear hoods because they were embarrassed. They didn't want their identity to be known. But how did we get to a place in this country where you don't wear hoods anymore? And it's really disgraceful. So I went back, and I think education's a big piece. I got all my superintendents in my K-12 and said, we're going to start teaching diversity beginning early in Virginia, earlier than any state in America. Because once you wait till you get to college, it's way too late. You're entitled to free speech. I may hate what you say, but you are not allowed to come in and do harm, property or persons. And that's you know, I didn't like it, but at the end of the day, they were entitled to go on and do it. It was a hard day. 32-year-old Heather Heyer, a young woman who was there protesting against hatred, was killed, run down by this maniac who weaponized his car and hurt 19 folks and killed Heather Heyer. And it was a hard day, and as you probably remember, it was very hard for me because my state police helicopter that I fly on, Trooper 1, I had gone down in another helicopter because they were using mine for surveillance with someone who had been my security agent on my detail, and my pilot crashed and were killed that day. And it was a really, really hard day. And then I had to go out and address the nation and the world. And I'd spoken to the president that afternoon, and I told the president, here's what's happening. These people are the most vile haters I have ever experienced in my life. They're spewing their hatred. And as you know, unfortunately...
What was his response to you on the phone?
On the phone was fine. And then whatever happened, he delayed his press conference for an hour, and then he came out and gave his press conference, and he blamed both sides. Well, you know, Kate, it wasn't both sides. One side spewing hatred, bigotry, disgusting language. The other side was protesting against that. And so I had to go out and I gave my speech, and I told those folks to get out. They're cowards. They pretend they're patriots. And, you know, I had to stand up and do the right thing. But it was really a tough day. But free speech, you know, we'll tolerate it, but we will not let you do it so that it incites violence against personal property. And what happened, if you probably remember, the rally wasn't even supposed to start till noon. Noon to 5. And, you know, we can get into all this debate, but, you know, I had begged the city, because I knew there was trouble, to move it out of the downtown park, Emancipation Park, and move it up to McIntyre Park, which, you know, is about 2 miles away, but huge field. How do you control protests is you got to keep the two opposing sides separate. You do the best you possibly can. Kate, these people were... This park was about 5 times the size of this deck that we were on, and they all were put into this cauldron of hatred. And the lesson we came out of it, so I banned a lot of the permitting going on until we had new rules in place. And unfortunately, the city moved it, and unfortunately, the ACLU sued us, and the judge ruled with them and kept it in downtown Charlottesville in this tiny little park, and 2,000 people converged, a lot of them with weapons, and it was just plain wrong.
What role do you think higher education has? We had Senator Alexander here this morning talking about how he felt that institutions of higher education needed to encourage, or needed to do a better job allowing and recruiting more conservative viewpoints on campus. Do you think that's true? Is there a role for higher education in this debate about free speech, and also in preparing people, as you said?
No question. I mean, you want a diverse, you know, there's probably a lot of people sitting out there that don't agree with me today, and that's fine. I mean, what I love about politics, and I've been in it my whole life, people come from different places. I never get angry in these political discussions. I don't, because you're probably not going to change me on an issue, and vice versa. we've gotten to a place in this country where everybody gets so angry and they walk away, and the hatred, there's no place for it anymore. This country is so split. So I think literally the university, the 4-year college and community college is a perfect place, an opportunity to bring people together, to live together, to work together, to socialize together. I think it is so critical to that, and we have to do a better job, I think, of fostering interpersonal relationships. But I'll make the point, I don't think we've done a very good job. I mean, we don't even teach civics in many places anymore in America, in the K through 12 system. If you wait till college, it's too late. We've got to start earlier. Interpersonal skills, learning, understanding. People come from different faiths, different cultures, different races, religion. We're a melting pot, and that's who we are as a country, and I think we have to start much earlier. But the perfect experiment of how we live together and work together is, you're living for the first time.
Right.
Without your folks, for most people, and you're thrust into this situation, you're studying together, you're partying together, you're living together. It's a perfect place to understand how people come from different backgrounds.
Right. So we've had a lot of discussions about education topics, cohort default rates and things like that. So now can we talk about politics?
Sure.
Okay. So Virginia and New Jersey are always seen as these sort of bellwethers for the next election. So tell us what you saw in Virginia. I'm particularly interested in the number of women who are running in Virginia and the victories we saw there. I think a lot of the challengers won unexpectedly. Is that right?
Well, we won't rehash 16. We've all done that enough.
I'm talking about 2017, Virginia.
But I do think, but it leads into 17. I do think what happened in this country is people woke up the morning after the 2016 election. 92 million people did not vote in the 2016 election. And I think they woke up the next day and said, holy cow. How
or
could
something like that.
How could this possibly happen? So interesting. Fast forward 1 year, we were the first real test in Virginia. My lieutenant governor was running for governor. Justin Fairfax, lieutenant governor, and Mark Herring. We fielded candidates in all the races. That was the first test. And it was extraordinary. In November 17, we swept all 3 statewide. Wow. And we picked up 15 House of Delegate seats, the most since 1880.
Wow.
Not 1980, 1880. Fueled by women. 11 of the 15 were women.
Wow.
I think if you look around the country, if you look what happened with Doug Jones down in Alabama, fueled by African-American women. And that was really the first big test. Huge turnout. And I predict that will happen again. If you ask me to make predictions, I think we're going to get the House back. We need 23. I think today we're probably looking at 40. I think the Senate's a much tougher map. The other very important thing I'm spending my time on are we have 36 governor's races up in America. I will always make the argument the governors are the most important, in deference to our senators and House members. A governor at the end of the day funds all your education. We build all the roads. We deliver the Medicaid, Medicare programs in our states. We run the day-to-day operations. And what I'm working a lot on, because this is a very frustrating topic of these gerrymandered districts in this country, I think it has ruined democracy. What has happened today is politicians pick their voters. Voters don't pick their politicians. And in 2016, only 7% of members of Congress had a competitive general election.
Wow.
So what happens, Kate, is you can only lose in your primaries.
Right.
So you get driven way right and you get driven way left. I always view myself as a fiscally conservative, pro-business Democrat, socially progressive, in the middle. And I think that's where most Americans are, but because of the way our gerrymandered districts are up. So and Pac's on both houses. I mean, this isn't a Republican, but they really took advantage in 2011. I'm for independent, nonpartisan commissions in this country, and this is something
on redistricting. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, every state ought to have it. We ought to take politics out of it, because it literally, people won't come together.
Right.
I fought like a dog for Medicaid expansion.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. When you mentioned Medicaid, that's the result of the Virginia elections, right?
Fought like a dog, so we now have it yesterday. And while I was governor, the speaker, Republican, when I got elected, we only had 33 Democrats out of 100.
Wow.
And the speaker said, you will never get it as long as I'm speaker.
Right.
You'll never get it. I'll never let it out of committee. And true to his word, but I did, I fought like a dog. I tell you, I was in. And, because of all of that and what happened with the elections, we picked up 15. We now, as of yesterday, have 400,000 people with health care. Wow. We bring $2.2 billion back. My point is, elections matter. But I could have gotten it done if they had a blind vote. I had many members of the Republican caucus come over to the governor's man and say, Governor, I'll be honest with you, I'd vote for it tomorrow. Because in rural communities, there's health care. I mean, they're losing hospitals. But if I do, I'll lose my Tea Party primary. And honestly, folks, are not going to risk a job that pays 17 grand a year. Think of that.
It's courage, principle.
I mean, I always speak frankly for you, folks.
Let's go to the audience for some questions. We got about 5 minutes left. Last questions.
And I know I'm between you and the cocktail hour. I get that. I'm Irish.
Anybody? No questions from email.
Do we have any Virginia here, presidents?
Oh, right there. So maybe talk about on the redistricting. We're now seeing the results of the sort of ungerrymandering in Pennsylvania. That seems to point in the Democrats' direction.
So we'll pick up 4 to 6 seats. And I sued while I was governor in Virginia. I won, and we picked up Don McEachin, new Democratic member, because we have to unrig the map in this country today. So it was a huge success what happened up in Pennsylvania, because they've put these, and we ought to get rid of all of these long snakes, and we ought to just get rid of that.
Yeah.
Competition is good. So my point is why I'm trying to work, we're down to 16 Democratic governors in America today.
Wow.
So everybody elected in 18, they will be sitting in the chair in 2021. So 2020 census, 2021 they draw the new lines. 2/3 of the chambers in our country today, because we really got walloped in 10, and they wrote a permanent majority in 2011, are controlled by Republican legislatures. So the only thing that can stop a rigged map would be a Democratic governor to veto the map like I did, and then what happens is the judge generally will send it to an independent. There's generally, a lot of times, there's this gentleman out in Stanford who comes up with fair, competitive lines, which
But
is
that
good.
can take a long time. In Pennsylvania, it took, what, 8 years? No, 7.
Yeah, about 7.
Yeah.
In Virginia, it took us a year and a half.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, come on, bold college
Yeah, there's
administrators
a
up
bunch of
there?
hands up there.
Okay. Let's see if we can get the mic up there.
And I hope you all want to move to Virginia.
I know.
350 wineries, 230 craft breweries, 8 varieties
This
of oysters.
cocktail hour, we seem to have a theme here with cocktails.
You eat our oysters, you drink our wine. Virginia's for lovers. You figure everything else out. I can't do everything for you.
Hi, Martin Bourgois, Skidmore College. You mentioned that the college setting is a great environment to discuss differences and engage with others who are not like you. However, recent events show us that some of those differences are even more entrenched, even in the higher education environment. So what would you suggest, beside proposing conversations and other debates, which obviously are ongoing, to better engage people on campuses and probably introduce a more civil discourse?
That's a good question. This is an answer I know all of you educators deal with. As I say, we've had to deal with it in Virginia because of the issue of the monuments that we've had. Obviously, Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy. If you actually go back and look at the history of our state, I think we have 1 or 2 monuments to the American Revolution. I think we have 1 to World War II and 3 or 4 to World War II, World War I, 1 to Vietnam, and about 140 to the Civil War.
Wow.
Honestly. And be honest with you, at least half of them were built in the 1950s.
Wow.
In a direct correlation to massive resistance. So I think for us, and what I tried to do for us in Virginia with our educators, we had a real burden on us to deal with this because it got to the point they wanted every statue taken down. And, these folks who came to Charlottesville, they were supposedly protesting against Robert E. Lee. Bet you half didn't even know who Robert E. Lee was. It was an opportunity to spew hatred. So I just think, listen, we have to have more open dialogues in our universities. I think we have to tolerate a lot of the give and take. This is part of what you learn in life, and we can't shelter people from doing it. But I think in the classes, we've got to do more on the teaching side to allow more actual dialogue on subjects that I think in the past people have found a very difficult time in our country to talk about. And we shouldn't do that. And I just think as educators, I think we need to promote as much open dialogue on tough subjects as possible. Listen, you're sending everybody out into the world. They're going out, and what they learn in those 4 years, not only as I say, you need to help me or you need to help me as a governor, get a workforce that I can, fill all these jobs and keep these companies I brought to Virginia. But you also got to do the social piece of it. People got to know how to interact. And I will say, unfortunately, and I have 5 children myself, all these what happens on the social media is so damaging to the young people today. Kids today spend all their time, and I have 2 in high school still, they spend all their time looking at these darn cell phones and on the social media, and it's just a gigantic waste of time. If I said to my son, who's 15, put it down and pick up a book, it is like an alien concept. It gets me crazy. Honestly.
So do you think we should have, what do you think about things like trigger warnings on campus? What do you think about things like trigger warnings on campus? Do you think it's a bad idea to say to students, this idea may upset you? Do you think we just ought to be throwing ideas at them without that kind of protection, that advance warning?
Listen, I come from the place, throw out, now listen, we had a horrible circumstance. Kate, in all our planning, and you cannot stop someone who weaponizes a car. There's just no way you can figure that out.
Right.
You're just never gonna get to that. But outside of that, I'm pretty tolerant but I send a lot of police and everything down there. You can yell and scream, and I may hate it. I mean, literally walking by the synagogue in Charlottesville, saying, I'd like to, with the mayor who was Jewish, I'd like to burn you and everybody else that we did in Auschwitz. How do you get to a place that you think this way? It's baffling to me. And so I honestly think this is what we have to deal with. So, I'd tolerate as much as you possibly can, but you got to protect person and you got to protect property.
Right.
And got to have that big, open, free flow of discussion. Go at it because it's a part of life. You just saw this week. You saw it with Roseanne Barr, and you see the stuff tweeted out of the White House every day. I'm not going to make today political, but folks, we are splitting this country apart.
Right.
The hatred, the bigotry, just knock it off.
Right.
Unless any of you came over on, or if you did come over in 1607 on those 3 ships, there were Native Americans here. No offense, they were here before you were. And this idea that,
we will replace.
These white supremacists were walking down our streets screaming, they knew what they were talking about.
I think you're right.
Honestly.
Okay.
You still don't know what they're talking about.
One more, Frank?
Sure, I'll take as many as you want.
Sorry.
I don't want to interrupt. I thank the New York. Let's give the New York Times a round of applause for putting this whole conference together.
Marty Meehan from the University of Massachusetts. I know you don't want to get political, but given your success at a swing state like Virginia, creation of jobs, working with the university presidents, don't you think it's time for you to consider running for president?
He told me I wasn't allowed to ask that. How come you get to ask that?
Here's the issue I talk about all the time. We've got great, and I do think the model, listen, when I ran for governor, all 3 statewide were controlled by Republicans. I just said we only had 33 Democrats out of 100 in my House of Delegates. When I won, I broke a 44-year trend. Whoever wins the White House, the other party wins it. And I ran, honestly, I'm very plain-spoken. I wouldn't say soft-spoken, plain-spoken. We need too many politicians today put their finger up in the air. I would rather swing for the fences and lose on an issue that I believe in than try and craft something that you may want to hear. When I ran for governor, southern state, traditionally a red conservative state, I was, I believe, the first candidate in the South or statewide official in the South during my campaign to come out for marriage equality. That is just something no one had done before. I was the home of the NRA. I'm the first gubernatorial candidate to get an F rating from the NRA, and I actually used it in my commercials. I thought that was a good thing. I just said, I wish you had a lower rating. And listen, I own guns, I go bird hunting, I take my boys hunting, but come on. We all have background checks. I do it, everybody should go through it. How does Congress not pass bump stocks after what you saw out in Vegas, after what happened in Connecticut with 30 children and 6 adults? We can't get rid of assault weapons. So, I was very vocal on that, and I told women, most importantly, I'd be a brick wall to protect their rights, because we had the horrible transvaginal bill, if you remember, ultrasound bill in Virginia, and the new TRAP laws in Virginia were shutting down all of our women's health clinics. The good news is I ran on what I believed in, sort of a unique concept in Virginia, and I won. And I hit it hard. I'm very proud that I fired everybody on the Board of Health. I kept all my women's health clinics open. I vetoed the most bills of any governor of Virginia history, 120. Horribly anti-women, anti-gay, anti-environment, pro-gun, anti-voting. But my point to everyone always is, and I'm a very pro-business Democrat, you cannot bring jobs to the 21st century. Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Salesforce, they will not come to a state that discriminates.
Right.
And that's what I kept going back on my legislatures. Well, you keep passing this stuff. Now, they never overrode me. I'm very proud. I'm 120 to 0. I never got overridden once. And that's what I think people want to see, whether you win or lose. And Republicans always say, I don't like what he's doing. But I shouldn't be surprised. The guy said he's going to do it. And I just don't think we have enough people in politics today that are willing to do that. Step out, swing for the fences. If I, on that very creative platform, did not win, you know, I'd be very disappointed. My life's not going to change. And people just see nothing getting done in Congress, nothing. The states are the real incubators. And that's why these governor's races are important, because, folks, the rollback of all these rights that I, as a progressive, pro-business Democrat, hold dear on women and LGBT rights, all of those rights are being taken away at the state level. You know, they got different organizations. The Koch brothers have funded a lot, and ALEC and all these other things have gotten together. People got to wake up and understand what's going on in this country today. You know, my job as governor, create jobs, fund education, fund healthcare, build roads, but golly, you know, stay out of people's personal lives. And men got to quit telling women what to do with their bodies. And we've got to get to that place in this country. I notice all the women are clapping.
All right, thank you very much.
Get it? All right, cocktail hour. All right,
Good to see
great to
you.
see you. All right.